Welcome back, Truth Seeker. It's 2020. At the beginning of this NFL season, ESPN called it the year of the black quarterback. Been a lot of rituals this year with race and quarterbacks. And just think about the history of the NFL. Only two black quarterbacks have ever won it. Both played for teams with Washington connections. Doug Williams of the Washington Redskins and Russell Wilson of Washington State, which happens to be the 42nd state, 42, like how the Redskins with Doug Williams won with 42 points, like how Jackie Robinson had on his back number 42, and he was the second black baseball player to play in white major league. The first was Moses Walker, who played in exactly 42 games. Remember, in Gematria, the word slavery is 42, the N-word's 42, February, Black History Month's 42. And a lot of words that relate to black history are 42. Special number. This year, Lamar Jackson clinched the top seed, number 1, 42 days before the day of the Super Bowl. Two numbers stamped on black history are 42, which represents slavery, and 59, which represents slave. Remember, at the beginning of this season, the Ravens scored 59 points in Miami to open the season, wasting the Dolphins. They would end up getting beat by the Titans with Tannehill, who played the majority of his career with Miami. Anyhow, look at the box scores for the elimination of the Seahawks and the Ravens. And I'm going to tell you why we're looking at these two games specifically. I'm going to bring this all together here. But just notice the Seahawks. Russell Wilson had 277 passing yards, 277. And Lamar Jackson had 59 passing attempts. Now, these numbers have a relationship, 277 and 59. 277 is the 59th prime. And again, for years I've shown how everything about the NFL is scripted from the final score to the box score. Negro, Slave, Rasta, Blues, 59. Again, Black History Month, February, ends on the 59th day of the year, except for in leap years. This stuff's not an accident, it's a code. It's used again and again in sports. Michael Jordan, 59. LeBron James, 42. Not an accident. Muhammad Ali had the 59 and the 42 coded on him. So many great black athletes do. Anyhow, the Seahawks and Ravens, they had a symbolic game this year. Big game. The Ravens beat the Seahawks on the road in Seattle's 12th man. By the way, it was the Seahawks' 44th season. Seattle equals 44, and they went 4-4 at home. Just like how Russell Wilson became 4-4 versus the Packers tonight. Anyway, that game, the day of that game between Baltimore and the Seahawks, the 43rd mayor of Baltimore died. Special number, football equals 43. Seattle Seahawks 43. They won their only Super Bowl over the Broncos with 43 points. Anyhow, the 43rd mayor of Baltimore died the day of the Seahawks and the Ravens game. And remember, once upon a time, there was a team called the Miami Seahawks. They played one season in 1946. They folded, and they became the Baltimore Colts. So Baltimore, Seattle, Seahawks, Miami Seahawks. The year where the Super Bowl's in Miami. Again, the Ravens began their season in Miami, laying waste. Russell Wilson began his season against the Bengals, and he's from Cincinnati. Anyway, look at this. Look at how they sync this stuff up. So the Ravens and Seahawks game was 30-16, October 20th. The Ravens would get eliminated by the Titans January 11th, 83 days later. That matters because Ravens equals 83, Titans equals 83, football equals 83, and 43 again. Football, Seattle Seahawks, the death of the 43rd mayor that day. By the way, Yale also equals 43. That matters because Walter Camp, the Freemasons, credited him with American football. He went to Yale. Anyhow, from that game, Ravens-Seahawks, October 20th to the day the Seahawks were eliminated was 84 days later. They were eliminated by the Green Bay Packers, 85. Or, I've always called the Seahawks the farm team of the Packers. Hasselbeck, Holmgren, number of other things. The only reason Marshawn Lynch ended up on the Seahawks is because the Packers didn't take him off waivers, which made no sense. But realize, this stuff's not an accident. The NFL is perfectly scripted. You can go through game by game and do thorough analysis. It's just that this is an example that I imagine most people will be easier for them to wrap their head around. Why they would do such a ritual in the playoffs in the year where the season's going to finish in Miami. And I told my followers on Patreon, There's some link here between the Ravens and Seahawks. And again, just because there's a link doesn't mean it always means it's going to end up in the Super Bowl. But when you just follow these things, these narratives, you see how it all comes together. And realize, making it in the playoffs, making it into the second round, that's not a bad season. That's the kind of season fan wants to see. They want to see their team competing. So, again, you learn the code, you see through the rigging. Packers win with 28. Packers equals 28, 51 combined points. Divisional round equals 51. In the divisional round, Tannehill got his 51st career win over the Ravens. In the divisional round, the 49ers became 5-1 against Minnesota all-time in the playoffs. 5-1 like 51. And in the Chiefs game, they scored 51 points. Houston Texans equals 51 like they hosted Super Bowl 51. 51 points in the divisional round. Again, you learn this code, you just see how perfectly scripted it all is. There's more to the scores than that, but makes the point. And earlier I did a long live stream, and I screwed something up in the beginning. I didn't tell a story right about the Seahawks earlier this season. So I want to go back to this and do it right. Again, in this divisional round, the Sunday games, two very similar narratives. Two teams get off to a huge lead. The Texans get off to a huge lead. The Packers get off to a huge lead. These are the two games of the day. Texans were up 24-0 on the Chiefs. Packers were up, I believe, 21-3 on the Seahawks. Two big commanding leads. In one game, the Texans ended up losing their 24-point lead, and they lost by a score of 51-31, being outscored by 51-7 after a 24-point lead. Just think about how ridiculous that sounds. That sounds like a top-tier college team versus a team of Bad News Bears to be outscored 51-7. So that kind of game really messes with the emotions of a fan. It's euphoria for the comeback for the Chiefs, but for the Texans fans, it's from euphoria to depression, to a few extra brewskis, to overindulging in a bag of potato chips to drown the depression. Then in the Packers game, you get a similar type of thing. The Packers fans are euphoric, and then they're nervous and anxious because the Seahawks have a chance to take the lead in the fourth quarter after squandering this huge lead. So, to go back earlier to this season, I live up here in Washington State, so I see more Seahawks games than anything else on the TV. And this was the biggest energy drain moment possibly of the entire NFL season, easily for the Seahawks. On Patreon, we had the Saints poised to beat the Seahawks. It was an easy number riddle to read, just like how this weekend I told people the safest picks were Packers and Niners. No doubt about it. It made too much sense for Rodgers to be facing, his old favorite team in his hometown, the Bay Area. Anyway, it's all script. But just to go back to this scripted moment meant to just drain a fan. Again, the Seahawks were in a close game with the Saints, and the game got out of hand really fast. While the game was still close, the Seahawks showed the highlight, or the television network showed the fans the highlight of the Beast Quake, where Marshawn Lynch had his great playoff run to beat the Saints in the playoffs. It was the year the Seahawks made it to the playoffs as a 7-win, 9-loss team. Saints were favorites to maybe be in the big game, and the Seahawks knocked them out. The Seahawks got even home field advantage because they won their division with a 7-9 record. But anyway, they show this highlight in the game of the Beastquake because Seattle and New Orleans are playing. And literally, if you can get your hands on this NFL film to see the way they did it, literally, no exaggeration, as soon as the highlight ended, the handoff was already being made. Russell Wilson to, I believe, the running back who was Carson. Carson takes the ball for 33 yards. Longest run of the Seahawks season, coming on the highlight. It almost looked like he was going to break it for the touchdown. But on the back of this great highlight run, you get the best run of the Seahawks season. But it went from the best to the worst very fast. His 33-yard run ended with the ball getting punched out at the end of the run. The Saints defender picks it up and runs it all the way back for a defensive touchdown. So going from a drive that looked like the Seahawks, were going to tie up the game, instead it ends up being this huge point swing. Instead of scoring a touchdown, you have a touchdown scored against you. So they do that to the fan. They give you this great moment, this exciting run that ends with this defensive touchdown going against the Seahawks, who were, on cloud nine for just a moment. But then this is what they do. After the beast quake, Russell Wilson takes his team down the field, and Russell Wilson scores a rushing touchdown. And they put up this stat just moments later. I mean, it couldn't have been more than after the commercial break. Just moments later, they get up this stat: Russell Wilson's 17th career regular season rushing touchdown, first since November 26-17. And this is what I've talked about for years, how the NFL just had these stats ready to go in a moment. It's like, God, who's researching that? Who knew that was Russell Wilson's first rushing touchdown since that day? So I look, and I go, oh my God, from November 26, his last rushing touchdown, to this one is 666 days. And what were they just talking about? They were talking about the beast quake. What's the number of the beast? 666. Remember, what's beast equal? 47. Seattle's up on the 47th parallel. It's on the 122nd meridian. By the way, Satanic's 122. And then Marshawn Lynch equals 66, like number of the beast, like how 666 taught about in Revelation, the 66th book of the Bible. And so my notes here, this is my free information where I put it out, but I told people all week on Patreon that really like the Saints to win this game because 68 was all over the board. The game was 68 days from Russell Wilson's birthday. Seattle, Washington equals 68. Bridgewater was making his debut as the Saints starter in this game. Bridgewater 68. Teddy Bridgewater's full name 337, the 68th prime. And something we've been talking about, the Saints had a few good stats for him in this game, but one of them was if the Seahawks lost, they were going to be 6-8 versus the Saints in the Bridgewater game, 68 days from Russell Wilson's birthday. So there was a few other things there too. I think the Saints might have become 4-4 in Seattle. Saints equals 44, Seattle 44. Again, it was Seattle's 44th season. They finished 4-4 at home. They were a better road team this year than home team, even though they're known for the 12th man, which is all part of the gimmick. Selling tickets, duping people into believing something that's no different than the WWE. But yeah, I mean, just understand, these games are meant to fuck with you. Literally, that's the only way to describe it. They are meant to play with your mind, your emotions, your energy, your adrenaline. They're meant to make you consume more chips, drink more beer, more alcohol, just like what's being advertised to you. This is a well-oiled machine, and if you want to buy tickets, realize you're sponsoring something that is truly evil. People are also murdered ritualistically for these games. Things we've been talking about, the death of the Remember the Titans coach right before the playoffs start, the Titans roll in. The death of C.J. Beathard's brother, the 49er in Nashville, and a number of other things that have just been going on all year. But you see what's going on, you see just how sick it is, so. Hopefully I put that together clearly enough. Year of the Black Quarterback, narratives with the Miami Super Bowl, rigging, scripting. And, just in case you missed my longer video, I'll just make one other point here about today's Sunday, January 12th, 2 games. The Packers winning and the Texans losing. If you followed me in spring of this year, long before the NFL season began, I covered the story of the man in the Aaron Rodgers jersey, who happened to be a black man, shooting and killing a firefighter in Wisconsin who was named Mitch Lundgaard, which caused J.J. Watt of the Texans to donate money to the family of the victim. And look at this. Look at how they do this. So, the victim's name was Mitch Lundgaard, 243. That's a number that has a mathematical relationship with 54 through Venus, and it's the year of Super Bowl 54. But check this out. Guess how many days it was from the killing of Mitch Lundgaard, May 15th, until these 2 playoff games with the Texans and Packers both playing similar games with different outcomes today. Guess how many days it was? The Mitch Lundgaard killing was May 15th. The playoff games were played 243 days later. And I said back in May, I said this story was clearly synced with this NFL season. Another major riddle. And no doubt about it. 243 days later, these very bizarre games, 2 big leads, 1 a big comeback, a crazy comeback. But again, just like things that we showed at the beginning of the season. Speaking of 59, this story came on a date with 59 numerology. It was all, if you missed my video on this where I break down the video, it's just so obvious that it's staged rig crap. None of this story is real. It's all bullshit. Just another fake news story to sync up with the world of sports, which is, what we document year after year. But again, this happened in Appleton, Wisconsin. Appleton equals 99. It's the Packers' 99th season. Their 100th year being established, but 99th NFL season. Today in the divisional round, they became 9-9. They gave Pete Carroll his 99th loss all time. Not accidents. Not by a long shot. But just things we documented. How the game was synced up with the start of the season. The Scottish Rite numbers. Against American football is credited to the Scottish Rite there, who work by this code of letters and numbers. Talked about how they released the body cam footage June 13th, 84 days before the first game. Green Bay Packers 84. Remember, they beat the Bears 10-3, 103 days from the death of Bart Starr. J.J. Watt also 84, donated money to the family of the victims. And Green Bay and Houston have that 77 connection. Bart Starr died 77 days before the Packers' establishment date. But the Packers and Texans also played a preseason game on 8/8. And that was exactly 88 days after the shooting. So we just knew that somehow this story was going to be a part of the important riddles of this season. And absolutely. Became a very important part of the riddles today, January 12th, divisional round. Packers move on. The black quarterback, Deshaun Watson, doesn't. This story kind of was like the shaming of a black man in a Rodgers jersey. Again, this is how they do it. They're cryptic, they're coded. You got to think about things to see exactly what the riddle means. If Rodgers does make it to the Super Bowl this year, if that does happen, don't forget the Super Bowl's on his 63rd day of his age. Just like how 2 years ago he got his 63rd home win on Monday Night Football on a 63-date numerology in a game where the score was 33-30, 63 points. And Rodgers grew up again in the Bay Area, played at Cal, wore the Joe Montana jersey on draft day when he thought the Niners would take him number 1 overall, but instead they took Alex Smith. And again, the narratives are tough this year. There's just so many things they laid down, but I'm talking about this Rodgers one since, well, about May. So leave it there, Truth Seeker. Till next time.